Hey, beautiful friends. This is Sarah Blumenfeld with Networking Done Different, an outreach of and invitation to more.com. This is a special series highlighting the service providers and vendors for the Galveston Metaphysical and Healing Fair at the Galveston Convention Center, actually this Saturday, April the 4th, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm delighted today to be joined by Heather Hildebrand, psychic medium, and she's going to tell us what she will be offering at the fair. Hey, Heather.
Hi. Actually, it's April 6th, I believe. Is it not Saturday,
Did I
April
say 4th again?
6th? That's okay.
Like the second time I've done that. Today is April 4th, y'all.
Yes, 4/4.
4/4/24. That's got to mean something, right?
A special day.
Oh my gosh. April 6th, Saturday, April 6th.
Saturday, April 6th in Galveston. We'd love to see you there.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, my mind is shot, but go ahead, Heather.
No, it's fine. I'm excited to be there. This is, I believe, my second time that I'm going to be there. Unfortunately, last year I had an emergency and had to cancel it last minute, but I'm going to be there doing an evening with spirit. That is, if anyone is interested in mediumship, it's an opportunity for you to witness the truth that love never dies. What I do in these events is I start with a brief explanation of how my intuitive gifts work in regards to bringing through spirit and making connections for members of the audience. And then we start with a short prayer to create that sacred space. And then I bring through messages of truth and compassion. And healing to those members in the audience. And these are more intimate gatherings. So they're smaller group gatherings with the hope in mind to get to as many people as possible. And regardless of whether you get, your own personal message, everyone leaves there. I always get feedback that everyone leaves there feeling so inspired by the work. Oftentimes there is a lot of these Me Too moments, is what I call them, is where the information makes sense for multiple people. Either I'll never forget one time I was doing an event and I was getting a Ronald, and it was like 6 people. So then we're figuring out which Ron. I was like, okay, military. And they're like, yeah, smoker. Yes. I was like, oh my gosh, these must all be for the same Ron. No, it was like 3 different Rons. And so it's always so um intriguing and interesting to me how even the people that attend together at these different events kind of have this connection unbeknownst to them. And it's really a passion of mine to be of love and service, because I know attending one of these events, you're letting me access the most beautiful parts of your soul and connections with people that you love so dearly. And although mediumship isn't necessary to move through grief, it can be incredibly healing in those that are kind of called to have that experience. Um, it's a beautiful experience. And the best way that you can prepare for something like that is really just come with an open heart and an open mind and set some intentions yourself of what you're hoping to gain, who you're hoping to hear from. And it's okay to even say, this is a message, this is a specific message that I would like to hear. However, I always really encourage people to come with that open heart and open mind, because sometimes years ago, I had somebody who, at the end of the session, she came back to me and she says, I'm sorry, I was so difficult. I only wanted to hear from my mom and I only wanted to hear this one thing. And so she kind of was just, you know, dismissing some of the other messages. And it's one of the reasons why when I work with people one-on-one, I give them the Zoom recording, because it's listening back to that information often so much more makes sense. And so prayer is so super effective in healing, whether you consider yourself a religious person or not. If you just connect to that powerful force of love from which we all came from, it really can help relax any anxiousness or nervousness, which is completely normal, especially if it's your first experience with mediumship. It would be abnormal for you not to have some anxiousness and nerves. But my goal is to really create a safe and sacred space for people to feel open to receive that love and connection.
Awesome. Well, I can speak from personal experience. Mediumship is amazing as far as making you feel, connected to your loved ones. I've experienced that many times. So how did you get started with this in the first place?
So oddly enough, I would have never in a million years thought I would have grown up to be a medium. Um, all of my testing through the high school years was like medical field, you should be a doctor, anesthesiast, nurse, physical therapist. And I've always had a passion for helping people, but I am a lifelong intuitive, a child who grew up extremely sensitive, had a hard time sleeping in her own room, had lots of prophetic dreams, and was always very connected intuitively. And I learned that even if I didn't understand intuition completely, because like most light workers or professional intuitives, we don't usually grow up in a family of people who are also intuitive and understand the spiritual or mystical arts. And so I kind of felt out of place, but always learned to trust my intuition at a very young age, because when I didn't trust it, I always regretted it. And so even navigating through school and high school, I felt like I was different, not in the sense of completely a standout, but always knew to trust kind of those hunches as to who I should trust, who it was safe to be friends with, etc. And as a young adult, prior to having my first child, there was a lot going on with me internally. Like I really felt like God, source, creator was preparing me like for something. And I would have these conversations of like, I know you're trying to tell me something. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to listen. I'm willing to do whatever it is, but I'm obviously missing something here. And after my son was born, it just even amped up even more. Like it just felt like the energy kept amping up more. And fast forward, unfortunately, I lost my dad. And there are a lot of intuitive God stories around that whole situation, including, knowing, being told what day my daughter was going to be born, which was probably, it was 3 weeks early from her due date. But however, had she not been born on that day, my dad would not have been there to see her be born, because she was born on the 8th. We left the hospital on 9/11, the day of the World Trade Center attack. The day that he went into the hospital was there 14 days past, and we ended up burying him on my daughter's original due date. And that threw into, that just kind of was the start of many things that led me to mediumship. And honestly, when my mother was the one that had a conversation with me that my dad had been watching John Edward, the show Crossing Over that used to be on the Sci-Fi Channel. And when she told me, I was like, when she told me, she's like, your dad was watching the show, and it's about this guy who talks to people who've crossed over. And I'm like, crossed over what, a bridge? Like I was and when she told me, no, like crossed over, like died, I was like, what? And I'm thinking, I said, I've never seen such a show, which I've never been a huge TV watcher. And I was like, what channel is it on? And she's like, well, I don't know the number, but it's on the Sci-Fi Channel. And I was like, oh, Sci-Fi, of course. And so I was this
crazy
person
people over there.
I mean, I'm the huge skeptic. Like, I'm like the unlikely medium, because nowhere in my, brain did I even, I had watched Ghost, and I had seen, Sixth Sense, and I was very intrigued by those things, but also disconnected from them also. And so once I found out that my dad had been watching the show, I had to be like, what was he watching, and what kind of crazy stuff is this? And being the intuitive that I had always been, I knew that I would know whether it was BS or not. Excuse my initials. And so those that, we have a good detector for that, right? Like we're good lie detectors. And so when I watched the show, everything within me was like, no, like, okay, like I have to pay attention to this, because everything within me is telling me that this is truth and this is real. And it led me on this journey, and actually led me to going to seeing him in person one year in Houston. And at that event, there was a woman handing out flyers outside, and I, from a very judgment place, which I, I'm ashamed of, and afterwards is, oh my gosh, this lady's trying to make a buck off of John Edward, like, why is she out here passing all these flyers? Because in my mind, this is the only person I'd ever witnessed. And literally God told me, do you think he's the only person that is that has the gift to be able to do this, to help people heal? And I was like, oh, I mean, yeah, kind of, and so a couple weeks later, I was guided to make an appointment with that woman, and it completely changed my life. And during that session with her, she was like, well, you have the gift and you didn't. I'm like, oh no. And she's like, well, this and this and this. And I was like, oh no. And I left there. I had the most peaceful feeling, and it's not that I worried about my dad, or I didn't think I knew that he was in a good place. It was just that I missed him. And I was very intrigued by this path that Spirit was guiding me on. And so in that moment, I was like, this terrifies me, but I also know to trust what God tells me. And so I had to set up these parameters of, okay, I don't feel comfortable seeing with my eyes open. My third eye works just fine. So let's just use that. Please send me the people that I can help. I don't want people to think I'm a fortune teller. I want this to be of integrity. And I never want to be disenchanted with the amazing love that is the premise of this work, and help me to be a blessing to other people. And that's going on 20 years almost now. And it's been the most
Now you teach this as well, right?
I do. I love to teach because all of my work basically started with mediumship, but out of that birthed helping people connect to their own spirit, that unique divine spirit of themselves. And especially our deceased loved ones really encourage that for us. They want us to live intentionally and be in awareness and to live life to its fullest and experience it with health and happiness and joy and peace as much as we possibly can, and not be handcuffed to grief. You know what I mean? To feel that we have to do that in order to honor them. They're always encouraging and reminding us that the love is there, and there's nothing we need to do to prove that. And although it is not easy and feels challenging to release all pain for peacefulness, that it can happen, and it's what they desire for us. And so a lot of times loss is the opener for breaking open your heart and spirit to a whole nother. I've seen it so many times where people's lives become completely different and change in the most beautiful and powerful ways because of loss. You know what I mean? And it, it's still kind of odd for people to say that it's a gift in some sense, because they never want to feel like they have to lose someone. But there are gifts out of every season of our life, and any way that I can help encourage people. And so a lot of my work is intuitive spiritual guidance, and I do a lot of teaching mediumship, intuition, spiritual tools. And I love it. I love people. So I think it's also just, I love humanity. And so it's just been rewarding for me.
Yeah. I love what you said about grief. I had that realization several years after my second husband crossed over, that many people have the idea that the amount of grief that you're in and that other people observe demonstrates how much you love that person. And that is such, as you said, BS.
Well, it is, because everybody
traps people in thinking they have to feel and experience and display grief, or otherwise people are going to think, well, you didn't really love him.
Well, and there's so many, grief it's a whole journey. And so sometimes you're mad, sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're lonely, sometimes you're angry, sometimes, and sometimes you're fine. And then the simplest thing will take you back to that moment. And everybody's journey is completely different. And one of the things that comes up a lot is if someone doesn't feel like they're receiving the signs from their loved one. And a lot of times it's too soon. You're still in shock. It looks differently than what you think, because I promise you, you don't need a medium to stay connected to your loved ones in spirit. And if I'm doing my job well, I'm always reminding people of that. I'm here when they need me, because coming to me is like going and getting a pedicure instead of painting your own toenails, or going and getting a massage instead of asking somebody else to rub your shoulders. It's putting yourself in that receptive mode. But it's not necessary. I don't have any, do I have strengths and intuition and mediumship? Most definitely. But everyone has the ability. And, there are ways that you lean into that love and allow that those signs and that love to stay alive in your life. And it's possible. Is it easy? No, because we're human and we have all of these, emotions and layers to our lives that we, have to learn to navigate through. But I promise you that love is always more powerful. And if we'll lean into the love, it can guide our healing process.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes if people are like unsure about communicating with their loved one, if they have a session with you or come to one of your events and have a contact with their loved one, then it can like open the door of their realization that, hey, I can talk to them all the time. They're like
I
right
can't
here.
tell you. Well, and again, it's why I do the recordings with my one-on-one sessions, because a lot of times when people watch it again, they're like, so many more things make sense. And a
Yeah.
lot of times there's one piece of information that doesn't make sense. And I get so many emails of like, guess what? I understand what that meant now. But it's true. The reading doesn't end when our time together ends. It kind of is that thing that is that continual then conversation and
Yeah.
awareness of I'm not alone. This is just a
Right.
different type of relationship that I have now.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful that I get to continue to stay connected to those that I love so deeply.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what time is your event on Saturday?
My event Saturday is at 7 p.m. Doors open at 6:30. It's first come, first seated. And I'd love to invite anyone who feels guided to experience mediumship firsthand. It's oftentimes people feel much more comfortable coming in the group setting before maybe experiencing it one-on-one, because
Right.
trying to understand, but it's going to be a wonderful night, and these events are always filled with so much love, and I mean it's palpable in the room, as we begin and as we leave. And I'd love to see anybody there that would love to come.
Awesome. And how do people connect with you outside the fair?
Heatherhildebrand.com. All of my services are there. I also, for those that don't live, nearby, I do online events as well. I do all of my sessions are via Zoom, as we're recording right now.
Mhm.
Um, and I do a lot of teaching online and in person. So I would love to bless you with whatever way I could be of love and service. And I appreciate getting to spend some time with you today, Sarah.
Yeah, when I was looking at your website right before we got on, I noticed that you can sign up for like your email list and you send them, I think it's a list of affirmations is what I saw.
I do. I've got a lot. I'm really kind of blessed in affirmations and prayers. I channel a lot when I'm working with my clients.
Mhm.
Ways for us to focus our energy very positively. But signing up for my email address also gives them access to the weekly angel guidance. So every Wednesday in your inbox, you get
Oh,
angel guidance for the week ahead, and it just kind of gives you a preparation of like, what can we expect, what might you be feeling, how can you navigate the energy that's coming up in the week ahead. And so I really try to give a lot to help support, because we're all navigating this life, and the more we become aware of ourselves and the more we're traveling down that spiritual journey, we become a little more sensitive, and we
yeah.
often sometimes don't have just everyone that we can talk to about the personal experiences that we're having. And as people kind of have their, especially people who feel like they've had like a spiritual awakening, it can
Mhm.
feel a little isolating. So I try to
Yeah.
find ways to give them support and give them connection with people that are on the same page with them and are having a similar journey, and we can have a shared experience.
Nice. I love that. That's so needed right now.
It is. It is.
All right. Thank you, friends, for listening. We do hope that you will come out to the Galveston Metaphysical and Healing Fair this Saturday, April the 6th, from 10 until 8. Get there early, be there most of the day, visit the amazing vendors and service providers we have, and then go to Heather's event in the evening. You will have the most amazing day ever and be so glad that you came. We'll see you on Saturday at the Galveston Convention Center. Bye for now.
Bye.